Yeah, so like you said, my name's Connor Furu. I'm originally from Olympia, Washington. Played Division I football at Drake University, where I battled a lot of off the field and on the field issues, whether it be physical or mental struggles. Through that, I found my purpose in serving others, whether that be creating free football camps for kids. I worked at the Boys and Girls Club my entire college career when I was there, or even traveling over to India, where I spent time at a safe house for kids that were rescued from human trafficking. And then I'm still an advocate today for those and still keep constant communication. So, I mean, that's a pretty bullet point version, but all of that kind of stems from, childhood problems and things and, wanting to be the man that, I might have not had or been the person I didn't have when I was younger. Yeah, so my parents, when I was around 8 years old, separated, which for, that's not an uncommon thing for a lot of people. But at that age, that's a lot of built up frustration and anger that you don't really at 8 years old, how to deal with. And so I naturally gravitated towards football, just as a way to, really release some of that frustration and built up angst that I didn't really know what to do with. And then it kind of just went on from there. I found a passion, and one thing that was one of my driving forces was I grew up in a family that was kind of plagued with substance abuse and alcoholism. And throughout my childhood, I was told that I was not worth my name, and I was not, that I should change it to a number of various things, just a lot of emotional trauma behind that. And so I found my worth in the sport of football, because around the 6th, 7th grade, I started to get a good amount of recognition from other people that are like that only viewed me as a football player, which was awesome at the time. But then when injuries and things came along, that became pretty detrimental to my mindset, because I only viewed myself as a football player. I was very pigeonholed myself into the idea that was all I was, and if I'm not that, then what am I? Yeah. Um, to be honest with you, it got to a point where I to this day struggle with this, but I tend to handle all my problems internally, and I bottle things up, and I've worked through that over the years. But I created this mindset from a very young age. It's like, I'm going to attack everything by myself, and I'm like, I kind of extreme ownership of everything that I do. And so, which I think led me to be a pretty good leader as well. But at the same time, I had troubles, building deep connections with people, because I didn't want to leave myself up for disappointment at that young of an age. So I kind of just bottled things up, which was detrimental in the long run. Absolutely. Yeah, and to be honest with you, throughout my a lot of injuries I had over the course of my football career, 7 season-ending injuries. And I had many people come up and tell me, it's like, why are you still going? Like, you don't need to keep doing this. You don't have anything to prove to anyone else. I'm like, that's the point. Like, I don't have anything to prove to anything else. I need to prove it to myself, that I can get through this. And when people ask me, like, why are you doing this? It's like, I can't explain it to you, because this is just an internal drive that I have. I have a constant, hunger to, be better than I was the day before. Like to me, when I go speak at high schools and stuff, I talk about resilience and discipline, and I say that rent checks due every day. And if you never stay stagnant, you're either going backwards or going forwards, at least in my mind. And that keeps me every day getting better in whatever facet of my life I'm trying to work on. Yeah, so my injuries kind of started in eighth grade. I snapped my left tibia in the eighth grade, and then in my freshman year, I snapped my right tibia and I dislocated my ankle. Sophomore year, I was all good. I played a little bit on varsity, and played a little special teams. Junior year, I was one of the top backs in the state if you look at yards per carry and other things, and that's kind of when my recruitment started to pick up, as I almost averaged a first down per carry, which I kind of came out of nowhere because I didn't play that much as a sophomore. But then right before our first playoff game, I snapped my left collarbone, unfortunately. And then going into my senior year, after my recruitment had picked up, I ended up tearing my ACL in my fourth game of my senior year, which basically took recruitment. um, I just knew that I mean, I loved being in a team environment. And then at the same time, it's like I almost got addicted to this mindset of like I knew people were thinking I couldn't. And so like it was like the more people told me to quit or told me to, like, there's other things other than football, like the more I wanted to do it. And that was a common theme throughout my entire career. It's like getting all my injuries had the opposite effect on me. I loved the sport like even more than before. I can't necessarily, I don't know how to explain it. I just, being away from it just made me drive even harder and harder to rehab back. So I was luckily given an opportunity to still play Division I football at Drake University, which I was ecstatic about. I finally got on campus. I was still rehabbing from my knee injury until about October of my freshman year. I finally got cleared, and then the second practice I was back, I retore the same ACL, which was with some other damage, which was another year recovery. So that's when some of the mental struggles kind of started to set in pretty hard. Yeah. And then, from there, I did not want to be at Drake at all. Like I wanted to pack. Drake's in Iowa. I'm from Washington. I wanted to pack up my stuff and get out of there. But for some reason, I just felt the need. It's like, I don't want to be here, but I need to be. I don't know why, but I just need to keep going. And so, I mean, that led me to even more injuries. But my sophomore year, after coming back a week into college, a week before I came back from this knee injury, and then a couple of weeks before I was supposed to play versus the University of North Dakota in an inter squad scrimmage, I separated my left shoulder, which ended up ending my junior season, actually, it was my junior season because my knee injury took me out of my freshman and sophomore year because there was some other significant damage. And then after my shoulder surgery, I came back and I was in the best shape of my life. Hadn't even played down in college football yet. And I had got into a point where just in practice where I was actually looking at some rotational, I was a running back. And so in a rotation kind of, getting some significant playing time because I was playing well. And I thought it was funny. You were like, oh, wow, you're actually good at football. I was like, I know, just no one's been able to see that, But then after I had come back from my shoulder, COVID hit and COVID canceled our season. And so it's like now something that's totally out of my control is like even something that I like, I'm in the best shape of my life now, and something is being taken away from me. But the fall before that season, before I hurt my shoulder, I had gone to India, and I had stayed with a safe house that had rescued girls from human trafficking. And we stayed approximately, I believe, 2 weeks there. And it made me realize that, these, girls did not care at all that I was a football player. And it got in that mindset of like, there's 7 billion people in the world who don't care that I'm an athlete, and that really resonated with me. It didn't deter me from working hard, because that was my journey, is to work as hard as possible without any promise of outcome. That was my role on my team. And I felt that if I worked as hard as possible, I give no one else a reason not to, because I wasn't getting any, stats or anything. And so, but here's these girls 2,000 miles away from my home, and they don't care. And they, just appreciate and love me and my other teammates who went over there. And so that really just got me into the mindset of, I'm going to work as hard as possible, and whatever comes of it, I know I'm going to deserve. So, yeah. And then luckily my senior year, I got a chance to play. I played in 3 college football games because I had another slight injury, but it was just a minor thing. But I played in, ironically, as many my college football games as I had reconstruction surgeries in my college career. So that was kind of ironic. But my first game, I made a play, open field tackle, and the whole sideline just went nuts. And I looked back, and everyone didn't know why everyone was going crazy, because it's like, it was just a normal play, but they knew everything that went into it. And I looked back, and, I prayed for 1,000-yard seasons and big stat games, but I realized everything I was praying for wasn't answered, but everything I should have been praying for was. And just, traveling the world, building relationships, I just learned so much from that. Well, actually, I had a job as a brain rehabilitation specialist, working at this facility for people who had neurological problems back in Des Moines, Iowa. But I came back for Christmas break. Granted, this was 3 months ago, and this is actually what got me into speaking 4 months ago, but speaking into high schools and stuff. I had mentioned before I was had issues with substance abuse in my family history, and problems with my father. But I hadn't seen my father in a long time, and I went out to see him, and he was near death because of his alcoholism. And me and one of his childhood friends, I found him in that state, and we drove close to 400 miles over 7 hours. And if anyone knows anything about Washington, it rains a lot, and it was one of the rainiest days in Washington state history. And we were driving all over the, Western Washington, trying to find him help. And then we finally got him help after me and my sister sat in the ER with them for close to 17 hours. And then we finally get him back into a room. And by that time, we got him into a bed, and he had been kind of starting to lose it as he was going through withdrawals pretty bad. I go back to the cafeteria to just kind of like decompress a bit, and I come back and all hell's broken loose. He's kind of going through peak withdrawals, trying to fight the nurses and stuff, and where I had to pin my dad down for a good 10 minutes until security came, because with COVID, the hospitals were so understaffed. And so there was these 2 little nurses that couldn't restrain him. And so that kind of job was placed on me at that point. But in that time span, I realized this wasn't my father. I was the addiction, and he doesn't have any recollection of this happening. But I was more than strong enough to handle that moment in that moment. And I realized that all the hardships and things I had gone through, from childhood to football to, helping rehabilitate the girls in India, was like leading up to this moment where I was ending that generational curse. And I was instructing nurses on what to do, because they were trying to be like, hey, sir, can you handle it? I'm like, no, this isn't my dad. Like, this isn't my dad right now. We need to do what we need to do in this moment. Which, sometimes you don't really see, you don't see why things are happening in the moment until you look at it from, a third person perspective. And I'm a man of faith, and I believe that one of my favorite verses is Jeremiah 29:11, which is, for the purpose I know for you, declares the Lord. Wait, sorry, I'm messing that up. I'm thinking of another one. But he knows the plans that he has for you, basically was the essence of the, sorry, I kind of butchered that, but the, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future. Sorry, now I got it. That came back to my mind. But I knew that, all the, like I had said before, all the prayers that I'd been praying for weren't answered, but all the prayers I should have been praying for were. I should have been praying for the strength to overcome these generational curses. And in that moment, I know it happened. And I know my family will be the man who told me to change my name. I know I'll take the name that he gave me and I'll make more of it than, anyone in my family has done before. And I was very grateful for that moment. And he was actually dying on the table, and they said he wouldn't have made it a few more days, and he's actually still alive today because of that and doing well. Yeah, absolutely. Mm. Appreciate it. Thank you. Um, I thank you for the opportunity to, and I hope you guys got something out of it. If you guys want to reach out to me on social media or have any questions, or want any advice, or just want to have a conversation, I'm pretty accessible. It's Connor, CONNER _ my last name, Furu, FURU. And I'm happy to reach out and talk to anyone. I tell all the high schools I speak at, if 99% of the people, or every person in here doesn't get anything out of what I say, but other than if one person does, then it was worth it to me. So I'm more than happy to reach out and talk to anyone who has a like-minded mindset and that warrior mentality. Yeah.